Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Audible Farm podcast. I'm your host. My name is Peter Stockdale. This week I'm sitting down with Michele Guild. Michele Guild is a podcaster just like me, except our podcasts are very different. Hers are solo, and mine are mostly with interviews, musicians, entertainers, and people of the like. And I would consider Michele quite the entertainer. Her podcast, called Welcome to My Show, is very entertaining. She sits down with herself, and she makes sandwiches. She talks about things she's seen online. She talks about her life. Sometimes she calls her mom. It is much more entertaining than I am making it sound right now. So I'm going to interview her, and we are going to absolutely love it. So this is episode number 28 with Michele Guild from Welcome to My Show.
It's the Audible Farm podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
What is up, Michele?
Not a whole lot.
Why do you spell your name with only one L?
Well, because my dad's name is Michael, and he wanted to name me after him. And in Italian, it's Michele, and it's spelled like Michelle with one L.
Oh.
So my name's Michael. Nice to meet you.
You've got actually a very justified reason for that, as opposed to just being like, my parents named me that. So.
My parents don't know how to spell.
So you and I had actually met up at a podcast meetup that you had set up, and it was I'm not one to just make a bunch of friends on the internet and go meet them.
Right.
I've been through all sorts of internet communities, and I've met a few people here and there. Like, I used to go to a lot of pro wrestling shows, so I'd met a handful of pro wrestling people through like Twitter and whatever, and you go to shows and talk to them. But this is one of the first times I seeked out a bunch of people that I'd never really interacted with that much.
Right.
So we go to this show, and it was actually a blast. I had such a fun time meeting everyone and learning about like how all these people's personalities translate into your show. And you yourself have a show.
I do.
All right, let's talk.
It's an unfortunate show.
let's talk a little bit about it.
Okay, well, my show is called Welcome to My Show. It's the worst title I could think of. It's the worst show I could think of.
I think the title's awesome because it's easy to remember.
Is it?
Yeah. I tell people about, I have told people about it and have seen that they've went to your Facebook page and found it later in the day. So it's something that sticks for sure.
Well, that's cool. Then I guess I nailed it.
Yeah.
So I had a show previous to this one. It started last January, and it was with my cousin.
Uh-huh.
And he, for whatever reason, decided to end it. So out of spite, I created my own show. I was like, I don't need anyone to help me. I can do this all on my own. So I created my own show.
Yeah.
And it was like, welcome to my show, because it's mine.
Yeah, it's yours.
Donald, you can't mess this up for me. It's mine.
So I listened to a couple of your shows before the meetup, and it's stuff that when I'm listening to it, I'm just kind of like, oh my God, is she going to say what I think she's... Oh my God. Oh no, because you're saying, I hate this, it's almost like you're saying what I'm thinking, but I'm too scared to say anyways a lot of the time. So it's kind of awesome that I get to listen to this. I recently binge listened to a handful of your episodes.
I know, I was worried for you.
At work.
It's dangerous.
And it was really enjoyable. I appreciate the garbage kitchen segments.
Yeah, I like to keep some sort of form to it, so I have different segments, and the garbage kitchen is definitely my favorite because I like to taste weird, gross things.
That's probably the thing. Okay, so if anybody hasn't listened to the show, she will make random combinations of foods and try them out and let you know on the microphone how she enjoys or does not enjoy them.
Yeah.
And some of the combinations are pretty outlandish, and some of them you actually really enjoy. But the craziest thing I think about it is you will eat something that anybody listening will obviously tell you it's going to be absolutely disgusting. And you will laugh your way through it and just be like, this is so gross, but I'm doing it for you.
I have to do it for my listeners. It's what they're here for.
How'd you come up with the idea for that segment? What sparked you eating weird foods?
I think, sometimes I'll just peruse Amazon for weird stuff. And at one point, I was searching for exotic meats. And this was years and years ago. But I found a canned rattlesnake.
What?
Yeah. And it was like a smoked canned rattlesnake. It had all the bones and all the fixins in it still, but it was just a smoked snake in a can.
Okay.
And so I tried that, and I was really satisfied with how it tasted. I put it on crackers.
For real?
It was really good. I had to pick through all the bones, and it was kind of a hassle, but the smokiness, it was really nice.
Huh.
And I've also bought like weird, what else was there? There was like a package of jerkies. There was like ostrich and alligator. And, you know, you can just get a bulk package of weird jerky. And I don't know, since then, that was probably when I was like 18. Ever since then, I've been just trying weird stuff.
Oh, man, that's crazy. But how do you make the jump from eating, rattlesnake that's been smoked, which honestly doesn't sound too outlandish, but I don't know if I'd go for it, honestly.
Right.
But how do you go from that to eating like Skittles and tartar sauce? Not to give away one of like the funniest segments in your show.
It's horrible. I don't know. I think I just needed to. It's an audio show, so it's hard to justify doing something that's kind of visual. So it has to be more outlandish for it to be more entertaining as an audio thing. So in that episode, I just wrote like a condiment on a sheet of paper and then wrote a bunch of foods.
Yeah.
So I would draw a condiment and then draw a food, mix them together, put them on a cracker, call it an hors d'oeuvre, and eat it.
Yeah. And honestly, some of them don't sound too bad. Like you ended up with some decent combinations on some of the foods, but some of them I was scared for you. Let's just put it that way.
Thank you for your concern. I appreciate that.
Oh man. The podcast meetup was great. We met a bunch of people. A lot of us got to sit down with Mike Libby of the Insight on Business News Hour.
He's a crazy cool guy.
Yeah, he's so awesome.
Yeah.
He's probably one of the people in the network that takes this the most seriously, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's his career.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely, it's what he does for a living. So it's props to him, and thanks for having him. He had a lot of us on his podcast /
I think he tried to get
radio
everyone.
/ news hour.
Yeah.
So, super shout out to him. And how'd you meet up with all these people that you ended up podcast networking with? Because you got a hold of me, when you had first started a network, and now you have the Iowa Podcast Network, which is the network that you had recently set up. And that's one that from some of these people that you had met at the podcast meetup and other people that you had already known that do podcasts, you kind of threw them all in a can, and now you have this one giant group that you're starting that is trying to be all-encompassing of Iowa.
Yeah, and the Midwest.
Yeah.
I don't want to be mutually exclusive to just Iowa.
Exactly.
So I guess I wanted to just have something where we could just have those meetups.
Yeah.
And it's just really casual, bounce ideas off each other, just have that community to grow, I guess.
Yeah. It is kind of nice to have other people around to bounce the ideas off of, because you had recently started a Facebook group and threw a bunch of us in it, and one of the first things I had suggested was that everybody kind of go and leave everybody a rating or a review on our iTunes podcasts if you have one. But some of the other things, like you could bounce ideas off of people as to like what they're using to record, or just things like that. I'm pretty intrigued by a lot of that, like where you're hosting and what kind of features wherever you're hosting has involved, or if you have a website and why you have one and what you're using to build it. Like all these kind of questions are questions that I kind of do want to ask people, because I don't know, you can be pretty technologically inclined, but you can still miss a lot of things because there's so much stuff out there. So
it's good to get a bunch of different options.
Yeah, exactly. And I think every single one of us is using a pretty different platform and software to record everything, and we all, like, a lot of us have different hardware for the most part. Some of us have more professional setups and some of us have more portable setups. So it's kind of nice. Like at the meetup, we got to see what a handful of people's setups look like,
right?
And believe it or not, some of the portable setups sounded almost better
than
some of the higher dollar ones.
That's impressive, because I have like a little portable handheld recorder, but it sounds like garbage.
Yeah.
So
what kind do you got?
It's a Zoom, but just one of the little ones. It's nice.
I got a Tascam DR40 from a friend of mine.
Oh, wow.
And it works really good.
I've heard those are good. That's a good brand.
Yeah, we used to use them to record live audio at like music shows and things like that. And it works, like, you can set the levels on it pretty well, and it works pretty good. So I've used it a couple times portably, but it's hard to control the individual line levels as opposed to using like a laptop and an interface. But I don't know. We're probably like getting way over people's heads. And we're like, I have no clue what they're talking about. Okay, let's back it up a little bit, actually.
Okay.
So when I started this podcast, I mostly started interviewing musicians that I had run into from around the area because I play music, and that's where I spent most of my time. So I started interviewing musicians, and believe it or not, there were a lot of people that started tuning into my podcast that had never listened to a podcast, that don't know what podcasts are.
Oh, interesting.
That my podcast is the only one they listen to still.
That's kind of awesome.
So for everybody else out there, let's kind of describe to them, like, what would you say a podcast is to somebody that is asking? Like, if you're like, I have a podcast, and they're like, well, what's a podcast? What would you say?
What is a podcast?
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to explain.
Yeah.
Or hard to describe. It's like radio, but it's on-demand radio.
Yeah.
So you can listen to it on your own time. You don't have to tune in at a certain hour on the radio program and all gather around the radio like the old days.
Yeah, no kidding. There's no tubes to warm up.
Exactly. Yeah, so radio on demand.
Yeah.
That's what I would call it.
Yeah, I kind of try to tell people it's like talk radio, but like talk radio I feel like is coming back because people enjoy these like long-form conversations that people have about whatever topics they tend to be. But it doesn't have to be a conversation with somebody else. For example, you do your podcast alone. It's a solo podcast, which is something that, props to you. If anybody wants to backtrack through my solo podcast I did, it's episode 0, and it's a train wreck, and it's only like 15, it's only like 15 minutes long, and I already ran out of stuff to say. So like, I mean, obviously you can lean on the segments a little bit, but how do you end up coming up with enough content every single week to record a half an hour?
It's tough because I always feel like I have a lot to say, but I never write anything down. So by the time I'm like, oh, it's Tuesday, and I always release my episodes on Tuesdays,
Yep.
I'll get off work and realize I haven't done an episode.
Yeah.
So that's probably why I just start eating garbage.
Oh, man. I've done the whole write down things for the interview a few times, and on some of them it works out pretty well because if you run into somebody that's like, I don't know, like a musician that's been playing for a long time, it's like, well, let's write down some of the things you've done because we want to go back through like the last 10 years or something, so let's write some of this down. I recently did a podcast with a comedian that I had met up after a show, and he was another one where it's just like, we don't know like anything about you. For the most part, I've met you for like 5 minutes, so let's write some of the stuff down, like maybe your social media and like where you've been and who your influences and things like that. So you get like bullet points down. But for the most part, I just freeform it kind of like you.
I thought that was a really good conversation. It was really fun.
Yeah, I had so much fun sitting down talking
I could tell.
To,
it was good.
Chris
we were both having fun. It was great.
Yeah, we were laughing a bunch. My dog Lady even made a special guest appearance, which, you have a cat that makes an appearance on yours.
Yep.
Scoops.
Yep.
Scoops.
2 scoops of ice cream.
So,
that's her full name.
How'd you come up with the name 2 Scoops of Ice Cream for your cat?
My friend had told me a story about this kid that he went to high school with who... he made everyone call him Scoops, and no one knew why, and I thought that was a really good cat name, but I didn't want it to represent this weirdo from his high school, so I just made it 2 scoops of ice cream.
2 scoops of ice cream.
Yeah.
So yeah, your cat every now and then, even on the garbage kitchen when you're preparing food, will come in and make small guest appearances.
Yeah. She likes to sniff the garbage I'm eating to make sure I'm okay.
Yeah, that was another one. Some of the food you eat, your reactions are insane. Like you talk to your cat about how bad it is. Sometimes you're just like, this is so bad, Scoops. Help me.
She never helps me. Mama's struggling and she leaves the room.
Oh, that's hilarious. So you actually do have another podcast, though. I do. You got the Impedecast.
Yeah.
I think the concept behind the Impedecast is actually really amazing, and I'm going to let you describe it. What is the Impedecast?
Impedecast it's in the title. It's an impediment. Mm-hmm. This is done with me and my friend Justin, we met through work. We work together.
Yep.
And we seek out environments that a podcaster typically would not want to seek out due to the surrounding sounds.
Yep.
So our first episode was actually recorded at Adventureland on the roller coasters.
Yeah.
And that was a really fun one. And so we kind of did it as a joke, but then we realized this is has potential. We thought it was really funny. And even if it's just for us, we love doing it. So it continued.
What are some of the other locations you've recorded in?
We recently went to Texas for a work trip and recorded in a tattoo parlor.
Yep.
And I was getting a tattoo during the recording of that one. That was fun. And another one, oh gosh, there's so many. I should just pull up the list.
Go for it.
This is terrible audio. I'm not prepared at all.
Well, I'm not. Well, I didn't come very prepared either. I do have some things on my phone pulled up just in case. But
really?
But we're definitely gonna get into the topic of the tattoo here after a bit.
Oh no!
Because I do have to say that I'm not one to just be like, hey, I like your tattoo, but for some reason yours is one that I was just like, I'm gonna reach out to this person and tell them I enjoy their tattoo, and I was like, I think I really like your tattoo.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Oh well, that episode is called Texas Tattoo. It's nice. Oh, Chuck E. Cheese. We went to Chuck E. Cheese with a bunch of kids.
Oh man!
I mean, we didn't go with a bunch of kids. There were just a bunch of kids there. We went to a sports bar. Oh, Black Friday. We went to the mall on Black Friday.
Oh wow, that would be a crazy one.
There was another one where we. This was so stupid. We walked behind Justin's wife while she was mowing the lawn.
Oh man,
that was a good one. We went to a jazz festival, and then we did record one at the Iowa meetup.
Oh yeah, you did.
Yeah.
I was stuck on the Hey Buddy show for quite a while, so I didn't end up making it across the room. Those guys are super funny.
They're crazy.
We're I don't know if they're ever going to release that audio because
I hope not, honestly.
Lord knows if it's any good, but I think a lot of us really cut loose from our normal platforms and really just kind of said whatever we wanted on that show.
Yeah, that's what's great about it, because you kind of get the feel for how other people act and what their show is about, so then you can just vibe off of that and
bingo.
Do your own thing. You don't have to be proper or anything.
That was probably my favorite part about doing the Hey Buddy podcast, was they were just like, hey, just sit over here and start talking, and then people just start asking outlandish questions to which you've got to come up with an outlandish answer, you know? So you just sit there and you're like, whatever, I'm just going to go for it. And then Andy and Ben, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so they end up just getting up and leaving after a while.
They left their own show.
They left their own show. Actually, I think to come over and talk to you guys on Impedecast for a little bit. No. So there's like a good 30 minutes or so of them not even in the recording for a while. But like that's the kind of stuff that they do on their show. They're just they're funny guys. Like I remember they had one recording at a white elephant party, and they just like had people walking by and sitting down and talking. Oh my gosh! With them. So they kind of just let people do whatever they want on their show, and that's like the beauty of all these shows is you get a little bit of everybody's personality mixed in with the show, and you can kind of just bring anyone else in you kind of want to, if you want to, because yours, you don't have a guest other than the kitty cat for the most part. Yeah,
occasionally I'll have a guest. Very occasionally.
Oh, for example, your mom made a guest phone appearance on one episode.
She's been in about 3 episodes.
Okay.
Usually she doesn't like to.
I
force her to be on my show. There was a Garbage Kitchen segment that she was in where I was blindfolded and she was putting things in my mouth and I had to guess what it was.
God.
That was a really fun one.
I gotta go. I've only listened to about 8 to 10 episods, so I gotta keep plowing. So I gotta keep plowing through so I can find that one, because I think your mom might be one of my favorite guest appearances.
She's a good supporting actress.
Oh, she's great. The commercial you made with her was awesome.
Oh God, that was horrible.
Oh man, it's all awesome. You make fake commercials and put them on your podcast.
I do. I started making those for other podcasters and putting them on Reddit, and I think like 30 or more people have put my dumb commercials in their shows. I just make up a business, and then I make up a commercial, and then I put music over it, and then it sounds like a commercial.
So what got you interested originally in like doing podcasting or like radio type stuff or audio editing or like this because it's kind of a weird niche. Like when I started doing it, I'm like, I can record audio. It's not that bad. It's easy. And then you start digging into it and you're like, there's a lot more to this than what's on the surface. Like,
right. There is.
Like what got you interested in doing this in the first place?
I think it's because I didn't really have like a thing. A lot of people have their thing that they're into. Like I didn't have many hobbies. I was kind of into painting, but that's not like a social thing. It wasn't getting me out of my comfort zone. So my cousin and I had talked about doing a podcast for a while, but we never actually did it. And then one day we just did it, and then I fell in love with it, and I've been doing it ever since, and it's really fun.
You say you make art?
Sometimes. Yeah. I'm not good at it. It's I would call it surrealist because it's bad.
Well, I'd like to see it just to see it, actually. That'd be I mean, I do have the podcast where I interview like musicians and artists and entertainers and stuff. So it would be kind of fun to actually see that. I didn't even actually know you did art. So that's...
Yeah, I have a portrait of Nicolas Cage hanging in my living room that I did.
I just smiled really big at that. Oh.
It sounded like a weird reaction.
I'm sorry. That was a good reaction, not a... I don't know. Maybe I just really like Nicolas Cage.
I do too.
Well, yeah, you were talking earlier on the Twitter machine about Face Off being one of your favorite movies.
It's probably my all-time favorite movie.
Would you believe it that I know someone that has 9 VHS copies of that?
I would believe that.
Yeah.
I have 2 DVD copies, so I'm on my way.
You're on your way.
Yeah.
Different platform, same game. So, like, I do enjoy that movie. I feel like it could have been pulled off better, but for the time frame that it was in and the technology they had, the movie was, like, the concept of it is so cool.
Oh, yeah, the concept is amazing, but I think I more enjoy it for the comedic sense.
Yes, it's something...
of how it's so out there and so... just wild. Like there's a part in it where someone's jumping off a boat and it cuts the scene like 8 times and they're still jumping, but it just keeps cutting for like a minute. Like the fall wasn't even that long.
Oh my god.
It's so good.
It took a guy a minute and like 9 camera cuts just to hit the water fight thing. I do really like the movie though, because like the concept, if nobody's ever seen it, is that there's a good guy and a bad guy, and the bad guy ends up going into a coma or something, so they like flip-flop faces and body features, so that way
he needs to like get into the prison to get more information from the bad guy. So John Travolta, Mr. Good Guy, has to swap faces with Nicolas Cage, the bad guy, to infiltrate the prison and get information from his brother or something. I don't remember. There's a lot going on in that movie.
So the coolest part about that is how John Travolta's the good guy, and then he puts on Nicolas Cage's face and becomes the bad guy.
Right.
But then there's a twist in there where Nicolas Cage ends up getting John Travolta's face and putting
somehow
he
he breaks into the hospital and steals the face that was on ice.
Yep. And so then you actually get this weird thing where, like, the characters that were in the beginning handful of minutes have now flip-flopped, and they have to act like the bad guy for part of the movie.
Yeah.
And then, in the end, they may or may not end up flip-flopping back. No spoilers.
They may or may not.
They stay that way forever, and the movie ends. That's how Hollywood works,
Please support Face Off and go to your local garbage movie store. Where do you even buy movies these days?
I mean, like a Walmart discount bin.
Go to your local Walmart discount bin and buy Face Off. Support local talent.
Oh man. So you got 2 podcasts, you started a network. What is fueling you to do all of this stuff, to create like a network? I mean, that's an endeavor within itself, because you've got to manage a new page, a new Twitter, new Instagram. You're active on all of it. You're very active on all of it.
Yeah, I try to be.
Yeah. So,
it's quite a lot, but it's fun and I enjoy the community.
Yeah.
Everyone's really supportive and great, and it's just expanding my horizons, and it's really nice. But what I'm trying to do is build these show pages for each of the shows on the network. You have a show page.
Yes, I do.
And what I would like to do eventually is reach out to potential sponsors or marketers who would want to put their ads in people's shows.
Yeah.
And then if I have this nice little layout of a show page with the reviews, like the positive reviews.
Yeah, I saw that going through there
There's
too.
a little media player on there for them to sample it out.
Yep.
I was talking to my friend Ryan, who is in marketing, and I was like trying to figure out what I should call this podcast network. And he said that something that they search for when they're looking to do something like that is the literal term Iowa Podcast Network. And so I was like, oh, let's see if it's available. And so I went to GoDaddy, and it was available. So for $11, I now own Iowa Podcast Network. So yeah, if anyone listening wants to check out iowapodcastnetwork.com, it has all the shows and their fancy little pages up there.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you running that, and you actually threw this podcast on there as the very first one, which
absolutely.
was super flattering, especially with some of the company that I'm in, especially like the Insight on Business, News Hour with Michael Libby. Your podcast is great. I go through tons of Hey Buddy show. I've been recently listening to that one and soaking it in.
Yeah.
And my podcast is kind of a niche thing, but it's also kind of something that's like a rehashed idea. Many people have done entertainment style podcasts where they try to interview people and talk to them about what makes them tick. So it's, pretty flattering that you thought I should be able to be the first person, especially when there's like I Hear I See, which is a podcast about Iowa City music and such. So like we're kind of in the same vein there, and it's kind of flattering that you chose me to be the first one on there. So thank you very much for that.
Well, you're very welcome. It's much deserved.
It's not the first website you've built, though. You have your own website for Welcome to My Show.
Actually, here's a fun story.
Yes?
I only own the URL for a Welcome to My Show.
Oh, yeah?
So my website is welcometomyshow.pizza. If you go to that, it actually just goes to my page on Iowa Podcast Network.
Well, I mean, that's a
the
great
secret's out.
That's a great redirect, though.
It's just like a fun little
and you can't
URL.
And you can't tell me that that's not memorable either, though. Somebody with a .pizza.
Yeah, it's like catchanddressasquirrel.com.
Exactly. Oh,
yeah.
Another shout out to Chris Schlichting.
I love that URL.
It's like the greatest thing ever. I've got a T-shirt that
really?
says Catch and Dress a Squirrel Staff.
I want a T-shirt. I'm gonna go to catchanddressasquirrel.com and buy a T-shirt.
I'm sure you could.
That guy was funny.
He's, you live somewhat near where he does a lot of comedy. Maybe we should check him out.
Really?
He's from the Quad Cities area.
Oh wow!
So,
okay.
Maybe we should make a trip to the Buffalo Wild Wings and check out his jersey.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You could bring Justin with, and we could do an Impedecast or something.
That's a really good idea.
An Impedecast and a B-dubs. Or like one that I had suggested for you for Impedecast was renting a convertible and doing one in a convertible while driving around town.
That's tough because we have been in situations where there's been just slight wind.
Yeah.
And you can't hear anything. Like the wind is so rough on those recorders.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think if we did a convertible, it would just be like
all wind. Yeah,
like the whole time.
It would be kind of tough.
Yeah.
I have found that recording in certain places is somewhat difficult. For example, you and I have met up in Des Moines to do a recording, but we don't really have anywhere to do a recording. So we're doing one in my car in the rain, and luckily for us, the rain is not causing that big of an issue on the audio.
Right. It's a nice subtle rain.
But yeah, like our other options were to sit outside somewhere or attempt to sit in a public location and do a recording. And this isn't in Impedecast, so
right.
So that's not my game if I can avoid it at all costs. But that is something I've found that's kind of a difficult thing, is meeting up with somebody, finding a place to record. More often than not, I end up in my own car or somebody's basement, or, I've done one in like a garage. It's in one person's house. And you just kind of end up wherever they've got room for you that's kind of quiet. And luckily for me, I've got a decent setup where I can adjust things. But
your audio sounds good on all your episodes that I've heard. So
for the most part,
kudos.
I've been tweaking it here and there. About every 10 episodes, I'll change the way I'm mixing things just to kind of see if I can figure out a way to make it sound even better. So I still haven't quite gotten it right. If you listen to the first 10, they're like every single one sounds different, because I was like, how do I want to do this to make this sound the best? So there's a few of them where I over manipulated things. I was like, let's try and make the vocal sound brighter and a little bit warmer and more natural. And then you start adding too many filters on things, and it just sounds like you're talking into a can.
Right.
So there's a few of those out there, but it's just one of those things you live and learn. Have you ever had any issues recording audio with yours? Or
I have. In my first podcast, I kind of learned all the basics of how to make it sound okay.
Yeah.
So in my current show, I haven't had many problems, but there was an episode where I decided to record while I was driving.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I needed to record and I hadn't done it yet. So I set up my laptop in my passenger seat.
Yep.
And my microphone was just like sitting on its stand, and I was just like looking at it and talking, and it was so bad. But I released it.
That would actually be a really fun podcast to have, like a car podcast with like mics set up so you could literally just talk. I mean,
that would be cool.
I mean, you can just use a portable recorder and set it up for the most part, but even then it's not quite, I don't think, directional enough to get the best audio as opposed to having a microphone in front of you or something like that. But it's also not something that the person in the passenger seat would have to be the person doing all the producing for the show, I guess, you know, because it's not something you can drive around and rock a laptop. I mean,
I did. It wasn't very safe, but I did it.
So do you play any music at all, or have you ever played any instruments? Or?
No, I'm not musical at all. It sucks.
Do you like music, though?
I want to sing. I want to be a lead singer in a band. I've always wanted to be a singer in a band.
Can you sing?
Yeah.
Well,
you want me to? I'm not going to do it right now.
Acapella here. Doom ba doo ba doo. Okay, no. There's probably a pretty good demand for a chick that can sing in a band. I bet there's a decent amount of bands that would be more than willing to have a chick sing. What kind of music do you like?
That's a really hard question because I don't have like a genre that I stick to. I'll just like hear something and be like, this is the kind of music that I like.
Yeah.
Or I don't like this kind of music. So I just flip through the radio and see what I like. And then I tell Siri to tell me what's playing so that I can screenshot it. Yeah. And then I know what I like.
There you go. So do you span all genres? Is there like some rap you like and some country you like and some rock and roll? Or...
I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just like a little of everything.
I tend to be that way the older I'm getting. When I was younger, my tastes were very, very boxed in. I only liked, punk rock, and I only liked metal.
Me too.
And then it's just like I like a little bit of blues. But now the older I'm getting, it's just like, anything that you can tell the person has put some passion into, I can kind of get into it.
Yeah, I pretty much only know music by decade.
Yeah.
So just any genre of like 70s, any genre of 80s.
Yep.
And I like all of it.
Yeah.
But if I'm in like a mood for some disco, I'll be like, yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
Just type in 70s playlist and then I'm off. And there we go.
That's one of my favorite things to do is when people first start listening to music or they like want to start branching out, they'll like ask me like, oh, recommend me some bands. Because recently I've been recommending a coworker some bands. And I'll kind of just try and find something that I think they'll like first. Like I'll find like a palatable 80s like rock band that most people like, maybe whether it be like a Styx or a Boston or like maybe like a hair band like I don't know, I've been throwing like like Tesla at people or whatever, but then it's kind of like, well, what if we go back in time and you can kind of, these bands kind of came from these bands, so you're like, well, let's go back to like Thin Lizzy. That's kind of like one of the bands that started rock and roll for people. So you can kind of generalize things by eras. Like you said, 70s is mostly like funk, disco and things like that.
Yeah.
And 80s was mostly guys dressing up like women playing a lot of really fast guitar.
Yeah.
And that's being a guitar player, that's kind of what drew me in, was the fact that these people are all just like super shredding a guitar.
Of
where
course.
Like 20 years earlier you could barely get any of that scene anywhere. So I do get where you're coming from. I'm still a little picky as an adult, but definitely seeing music live is more entertaining to me than listening to it in a recording form, because I can go enjoy live music of almost any genre based on the fact that you get to watch somebody create it in front of you. I think. And that's probably one of my favorite parts. For example, like EDM and stuff like that, I won't listen to EDM, but if I'm watching somebody actually push the buttons and turn the turntables, it looks pretty cool.
Right, I can understand that.
The guys that are just pushing a button on a laptop, not so much. And that's one thing that like I played music for the last 15, 20 years, but I still only have my experiences. So there's a bunch of stuff like I've never tried to sit down with a turntable and actually make it work for a while. I've sat down with a few and tinkered with them, but it's not something I went in wholeheartedly. So when I see people doing that, it's impressive. And that's kind of like you start to figure that out playing different genres of music. So it's like before I started playing a lot of blues, I was really impressed by people that could play the blues. And then you start playing it and it's like, okay, now I kind of get this. And it's, you start to listen to people play country and it's like, man, I've never tried to actually like play country before. And you start to play it and you're like, you figure out why everything is difficult. And that's probably one of the reasons I appreciate it. So you've never actually tried to pick up an instrument and play it at all?
I have a ukulele.
Nice.
Yeah, I can strum a few notes on that, but That's about it.
That's about it?
Yeah. I recently bought a flute for some reason.
No kidding?
Yeah. I work at a music store for a music company, and they take us on this trip, well, a handful of people, down to Texas for this music educators, what do they call it? A convention, basically.
Yep.
And we'll set up a store in this big convention center, and we had this discount table, and so I bought this discount flute for like $5.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep. So I brought that home on the plane with me and haven't really touched it.
Well, if nothing else, it's a good art piece or a good conversation starter.
Yeah. I got to learn how to play flute, I guess.
Well, there is so much at our disposal now in this generation compared to what people used to have. There's the internet and YouTube and people showing you how to do everything from start to finish.
That's how I learned how to play ukulele.
Yeah.
It's YouTube.
It's not that bad because when I first started playing, there was barely the internet, playing guitar, that is. And so you had to rely on talking to other people and lean on the community a little bit. And it's tougher to find the people back then because there wasn't the internet. So you kind of had to know where to go or who to talk to find out where the events were at. Because, that was back in the days where you had to hang flyers and gas stations and things like that. So, it's so much easier now to learn things with YouTube. And just from my personal experience growing up and reading like tablature, you can just find like chords and stuff online with lyrics and kind of guess your way through a song. But now there's, like you said, there's somebody on demand with a video camera in front of them saying this is exactly how you play the song, and you can hear exactly, like, watch them do it and note by note, and they show you step by step how to do it. So
yeah, let me slow it down for you. Here we go. And then you can just learn literal step by step.
Yeah. And I feel like that is like, that's super cool because it's something that I wish has been around forever, but it also kind of blows my mind that when I talk to some of the older generation of people that come on the podcast and it's like, well, you've been playing guitar for this many years, and like, how did you learn that? Because like some of these people would be like, well, this guitarist was always in the left monitor and the other guitarist was always in the right, so we just pan everything hard left and then listen to everything on only the left speaker, and it'd be like, that's this guy. So we try to figure out what he's playing. And then we go through, listen to the song again and pan it all the way to the right and be like, well, this is the other guitarist. And it's like, how would you even...
That is insane.
Yeah, and then just to mimic it based on what it sounds like is pretty mind-blowing to me. Cause
that's really impressive.
Yeah, and that's how most of the older generation of musicians learned how to play music.
Just by ear.
As opposed to a lot of us younger generations where we learned reading tablature, which is kind of like a cheat sheet, I guess you could call it. So,
I mean, that's still impressive. I can't read that. I can't read that mumbo jumbo.
I bet you could if you really wanted to sit down.
Maybe. I mean, I did used to play, not to brag, I used to play the recorder in 4th grade.
Oh, nice.
And I was really good at reading those.
Just hot cross buns all day and night.
Yeah.
That was the only song I remember playing on the recorder, and then that was the end of the segment in school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was hot cross buns, and then
we
we're
got
done.
pretty deep into it. I went on to teach myself how to play the Jurassic Park theme song.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. I had a lot of fun with it.
That better be on your next podcast. This is the
I don't know if I can do it. Oh, I don't have a recorder.
Oh, man.
You know what? I work in a music store.
Yeah.
I'll go pick one up for 95 cents.
I was going to say, too bad they're expensive. Pause not.
Yeah.
Made out of plastic. There's a video online of somebody that was making woodwind instruments out of vegetables. That might be something.
I think I've seen that.
Like one of them was a clarinet, maybe, or maybe a saxophone or something. But yeah, it was like
I can make a recorder out of a carrot.
That might be kind of fun to try, actually.
Uh-huh.
And then you can eat it as garbage kitchen material later.
Stuff it with like gross stuff.
Today on my podcast, I'm going to play a recorder I made out of a carrot that is full of tuna fish.
Ew.
That's you say ew, but then you laugh about it.
And then I'm gonna go do it.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's not even that bad compared to some of the stuff that
you know what?
Pulled
That's
up.
true because I think there's sometimes carrots in like tuna salad.
Yeah. What is the best thing you've eaten on the garbage kitchen?
The best thing? That's
Yes.
easy answer.
Okay.
I recently did an episode where I was making irresponsible sandwiches.
Yes.
With peanut butter as the base
Uh-huh.
and then putting other things in it. I had never had a peanut butter and pickle sandwich before. And when I tried that, oh my gosh, I can't even tell you. That is my favorite sandwich now.
I've actually been a huge fan of peanut butter and pickles for a long time, but we talked about this a little bit online, and I eat it on a hamburger, and you do not like hamburgers.
I don't eat ground beef.
No, and I cut meat for quite a while, and I can I can understand why, but at the same time, whatever, I guess. So
maybe I'll do a garbage kitchen where I just mix things with ground beef.
Oh, man.
I would probably vomit, to be honest. That's disgusting.
So you don't need any ground meat at all? No ground pork?
It's a textural thing.
I could see that.
I don't know. I just... Ugh.
We used to make fun of people that we worked with. We were like, I don't like this. Why? It's texture based. And it's like, what kind of a childish answer is that? But in all honesty,
true.
I think we all have.
The smell of it is gross. When my parents used to take us on road trips to my grandparents' house, they would usually stop and get fast food. And if there was a burger in the car, I'd have to roll the window down.
Oh, man.
Because I couldn't smell it.
Well, like a fast food burger is totally different. A fast food burger smells like a junior high men's locker room. Like, yeah, they're so bad.
It does. It's gross.
It does. Like, I know I'm not trying to throw fast food places under the bus, but I always thought Burger King smelled a lot like a locker room, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And that's one reason I just don't eat a whole lot of Burger King, because it just, for some reason, it always was just like, man, this smells like guys that don't shower enough and they wear Axe.
A smell memory can ruin a thing for you.
Oh, totally.
Really.
What started you not eating ground beef, or have you just never liked it?
I've never liked it.
Really?
Ever, yeah.
So,
and it's weird too, because maybe this has to do with the reason I do garbage kitchen as well, but ever since I was a kid, I would like eat everything.
Yep.
Just find a piece of trash on the floor and it's going in my mouth. My mom caught me one time. We were at a movie theater and she looked down at me and she's like, "What are you eating?" And I pointed at the garbage can. And no one knows what I was eating, but I ate something out of the trash can.
You were 18 years old at the time.
Yes. Not long ago. No, I was probably like 3. But then another time she saw me walking home from school, because we lived in front of the elementary school, and she's just looking out the window, sees her little girl walking down the sidewalk, bend over, pick something off the ground, and put it in her mouth. And that was me eating candy I found on the sidewalk.
So the garbage kitchen is something that was inherently bred into you from childhood.
Apparently.
That you just cannot escape for some reason.
Yeah, I used to eat packing peanuts too.
Packing peanuts actually will dissolve in your mouth if you get the right ones.
Oh, yeah, those are disgusting. The ones that dissolve.
Yeah, but let's be honest, the squeakiness is amazing though.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
The styrofoam ones are really fun.
Yeah, of course. I could see where you would draw enjoyment out of that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to go out and get a plate full of packing peanuts.
Don't. It's not highly recommended.
Yeah, I bet it's man, I bet if you ingest enough of those, it's probably really not good for you, honestly.
I'm sure. But haven't you seen those TLC shows, My Strange Addiction?
Yes. There's people eating like
couch.
Yeah, I saw that one. Someone was eating like toilet paper was another one. They just would get like rolls of toilet paper and they just like get a square and just eat it. And
That's so weird. Sometimes though, I will admit, when I'm watching that show, sometimes I'm like, that looks really good.
Yeah.
There was a lady chowing down on rocks, and I was like, that sounds good. That looks good. The way she's crunching them just sounds so nice.
My dog actually will just like go out in the driveway and like lick up a rock and just chew on it a bunch and then just spit it out and then go lick up another one and do it again. And I have no clue why she does it, but
weird.
Yeah, and it's
called TLC.
Yeah, you follow
Let's get her a show.
I got a dog here. Her name's Lady. She eats rocks. Addicted to limestone.
I would eat limestone. It would like disintegrate.
And that's what she does. Just chomp it. And I don't know if I don't know.
Weird.
So. Yeah, I guess everybody's got little quirks. And that's probably one of the things I like about your podcast is your individual quirks come through in the podcast with a great shining light. It's very entertaining though, because there's
Thank you.
Like on my podcast, I don't want to say that I'm disingenuous, but I try to have a certain air of like I'm kind of interviewing people and talking to them about what they have going on in their life. So I feel like I have to sort of act a certain way. So I don't necessarily cut loose and say all the things I want to say, and I'm trying to be as respectful as possible to the guest and stuff like that. And since you're alone, you get to just kind of just wing it and do whatever you want.
Right.
And
you'll have to be on my show so you can just let loose.
Oh, I will do the garbage kitchen segment with you if you involve ground beef in it somehow.
That's tough. Okay, but can I also involve bacon in it?
Oh,
you told me you don't
man.
like eating pig.
No, bacon's not my favorite. But I will do it if you want.
If I'm eating ground beef, you're eating
I'll
bacon.
Eat bacon.
Okay, I'm gonna set this up.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
Oh man,
I'm scared already. Honestly,
what did I get myself into? We'll have to set up a way where we each bring a handful of things and do something.
Oh, that's good.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So I was actually debating on whether or not to like try to have a segment with you split between the shows or something like that, where you and I every now and then get together, whether it's a Skype interview or we talk online and record the audio that way, but like split the audio and send it to each podcast so we could do like a double promotion thing.
That'd be fun.
Because I always thought that people that split their podcast, it was a pretty fun thing for them to do. And I'm new to the game. I don't know like exactly how I'm doing things yet. Like I said, the first 25 episodes were all musicians, and then it was a comedian, and now I'm just kind of like, I'm opening it up to all entertainers. So if anybody thinks they're entertaining and you want to jump on the podcast, bring it on.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
So
because entertainment has so many different ventures and values and
exactly. I recently did a podcast with a guy, and I'm gonna keep it under my hat for now and hold it back for another week. But it's gonna be a great one. It's a guy that's literally just an internet personality for the most part, and let's just say that he likes to eat pizza, and that's what he's known for. So I'm doing
what?
Yeah.
There's someone known for eating pizza?
Yeah.
Is it someone that I maybe have heard of?
Maybe. He got in touch with me and was just like, hey, I might want to do a podcast with you. And I was like, well, if you come up to Humboldt, we've got a pizza place in Humboldt. It's called Pasquale's, and it's really good. And I'll take you out to dinner and we'll do a podcast.
Cool. I can't wait to hear it. Yeah. I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's really fun. The last one I did was with Marco Battaglia. Battaglia is how he pronounces it. I'm sorry, Marco. But
it's Italian.
Yeah, he is very Italian.
Yeah.
But he is a bassist, but he also ran for governor. So, and he got second place in the primaries for the Libertarian Party by, a pretty slim margin. So,
wow.
He almost got the bid to be a Libertarian on the ballot for governor. So that's pretty crazy.
That's
I
cool.
got to sit down and talk to him about that a little bit. But that was another one where we sat down and started talking, and by the time I looked at the time, it was like, oh, we've done over an hour now, and we've barely even touched politics, so I'm going to have him back on again.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's another thing, like doing a podcast. Let me ask you your opinion on this, because this podcast, I've yet to double up on somebody. What do you think about podcasts that bring people back for a second, interview? Have you listened to any where like somebody gets 20 episodes in and then they already double back on somebody, or what's your take on that?
I don't think there's nothing that I can think of that I've heard of that, but it's not something I would like look down on. Like, oh, you've run out of guests already. You're going to go back and grab a used one. Yeah. It's not, I wouldn't think of it like that. It's just if you have more to talk about with that person and they're an interesting person, which he was.
Yeah, exactly.
I would listen to that. So.
Well, there's some people I really wanted to sit down with again, because some people's numbers, either based on their where they shared the interview or like how we interacted, because there's a few of them that have really high numbers based on what I'm not 100% sure, but I kind of want to do another one with them and test out the waters and see if it was our interaction that got the high numbers or just random sharing that and people clicking links that drew in all the views. And that's one thing that I'm really like curious about by all this is like what kind of numbers everyone draws and things like that. Because like I said, I'm still pretty new to this, and you've been doing it for a little bit longer than I have. So
a tiny bit longer.
Yeah. But I feel like you've definitely have this all felt out quite a bit better than I do. For example, you even have a Patreon page.
Yeah.
Let's plug that. Do you know it?
Sure. Honestly, I don't.
Don't know it off the top of your head?
It's probably patreon.com/welcome to my show podcast.
Yeah. All right. So that's a
thing.
That's a place where you can go give Michelle money.
Yeah. And then I will, in return, send you some gross food.
You will actually send them the gross food or you will send them a recipe for gross food?
Both, actually.
What? You're gonna box up gross food and send it to people?
Well, the boxed food that I'm sending out is like prepackaged, just weird things that I've bought. Mm-hmm. I'm not like, here's a cracker with mayonnaise.
Oh yeah, and put it in a Ziploc bag and send it over.
Skittles on it. Yeah, I wouldn't do that unless if someone requests it. I'm gonna send that to them.
Oh man.
Because I'm just a giving person. But I'm also creating a recipe book.
Yeah.
It's a cookbook, but it's the Garbage Kitchen cookbook.
Yeah.
So I'm just buying the cheapest ingredients and the grossest stuff, but also making an actual recipe.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that blows me away is it feels like you have mostly no bad ideas, no matter how bad you try to make them.
That's really nice.
because you always talk about how your show is like my dumpster of a show, this and blah. And
it's very bad.
And
Don't listen to it.
I don't know if that's the best promotion I've ever heard.
Oh, I don't like to promote it. I actually tell people don't listen to it. It's reverse psychology. You see, it works every time.
It definitely worked on me. Maybe, I don't know. I really, really like it, and I'm not here to just like pander to you and be like, your show is so amazing, it's the greatest, but I don't know, give yourself a little bit more credit. You set up a great meetup. You've got a great podcast that, like, it also blows me away that you do it alone. Like, I don't know how you sit down alone and do a podcast.
I feel like I talk to myself all day, but that's in my head.
Yeah.
So why not just say it out loud to my cat?
Yeah. Speaking of somebody that doesn't have any bad ideas, we skipped the idea of your tattoo.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you have a tattoo that I think the first time you and I interacted online was I sent you a message. It was just like, I really dig this tattoo.
Yeah.
Like, for some reason, I really like it a lot. So let's let everybody know you did the Impedecast episode
while I was getting this tattoo
in Texas. What was the tattoo?
The tattoo says, I don't like anything. Just an Arial font, period at the end.
Yeah.
Just one line of text.
Yep. It's and where's it located at?
It's on my inner bicep.
So if you're flexing on somebody, they're gonna see it.
Exactly.
I think it's the funniest thing, and I feel like everybody has a little bit of that in them anyways.
Right.
And so it's just awesome to see somebody that had the guts enough to like put it on their body, as opposed to being like, I've got a tattoo of my favorite animal, or what, like.
Right. Which I have that too.
I know, but it's not. So. Oh, sorry. But
don't make fun of me.
I'm sorry.
You're roasting me on your podcast.
That's what I do here. People don't know that. Surprise. You're on the new podcast. No, starting a new one where I just make fun of people the whole time.
I would listen to that.
Oh my God, it'd be so horrible. I would love to start a podcast where I just cut loose and say whatever I want to, but there's no way I'm going to tag my name to the thoughts that are in my head that I keep bottled in there.
I understand that.
So
I just took off my filter and I was like, yeah, that's me saying that. And I did it.
That's why your podcast is so good, because you're genuine. You are 100%. And I said it earlier in the podcast, you say the things that other people are thinking, but they're too scared to say anyways.
I like that. Yeah.
And it's not like that's constantly what you're doing. You're not out there like putting everyone on blast the whole time. But
I'm not a stand-up comedian like trying to get a laugh.
Yeah, but
if you laugh, that's cool too.
You've got a pretty good way of going roundabout to making a point. Like you don't just come out and be like, these people are stupid. You have like a story.
But I say that all the time.
Yeah, but it starts out with a nice long story with a point, shows that you at least empathize with the person, and then you kind of put them on blast,
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I enjoy the most about it, is it's like, that's where, when I was talking to Chris, it's like, how do you make jokes and be funny without literally just like ripping on somebody? There's
a respectful way to put people on blast.
Yeah.
Apparently.
And I don't know how to do it, because like I said, if you take my filter off, I just turn into mean. Like, I was never good at giving people crap, where it's just, I don't know. You just want to punch down at everybody, and I'm not good at it. So I try to keep it under my hat the best I can. Mm-hmm. And keep my mouth shut. So like, when people give me crap, I'm usually just like, yep, sounds good, because otherwise I'm going to be like, I'm not even going to give an example on my own podcast, because I don't want to record it in audio form for all to hear forever.
Just start crying whenever someone's mean to you. They'll stop. I promise they'll stop.
Oh my gosh, they probably would. Mm-hmm. Probably take me to go get psychiatric help.
Maybe.
Not that that's a bad thing. We all definitely.
Everyone needs.
We all definitely need.
I mean, look at my tattoo. I'm obviously crazy. Actually, despite my tattoo that says I don't like anything, I'm actually a very positive person.
I've actually noticed that the more we've conversed, whether it be on Twitter or through the network that you have created, Iowa Podcast Network, you actually don't not like everything. Like
right.
It's
kind of just a thought that I have all the time. Like if I'm at work, usually I'm just like, everything sucks.
Yeah.
It's just a thought that everyone has from time to time.
Yeah, you literally don't believe yourself when you say that everything sucks, but in the moment, it's how you feel. And that's, I don't know if it comes from being an absolutist, but I do, I have that feeling, and I know exactly how it feels. And now when I think that way, I think of your inner bicep flexing on me, and I'm just like, I'm not the only one that hates everything, I guess.
Yeah.
So, and it's not like I do, because like you said, I'm a pretty positive person on my own podcast.
But you can still think that you don't like anything.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I think some of that also is like internalized, where it's just like I also think, well, I don't think anybody likes me either, so too bad,
Yeah.
And it's not like nobody likes me, but it's just that weird little bit of uncertainty that's stashed away in everybody's brain, kind of coming to fruition in a physical form, like on the inside of your bicep.
Yeah.
So whether or not you want to admit it, I feel like everybody goes through those kind of feelings, and it's kind of nice to have somebody out there just. That's the thing. It's like you're putting yourself on blast, but kind of poking fun at everyone else
Right.
too at the same time, and it's part of the genius. But like, what made you like literally want to get this tattoo? Like, was it just something you walked in there? I'm sure it wasn't something they had on the wall as one of their like $50 tattoos. Like, we tattoo this about 6 times a week on people.
Oh my gosh, they're going to now. Like, the tattoo artist put it on Instagram and stuff, and I think she's probably done a couple more of them. But the reason for this, we rented these little scooters in Texas. These little, enter your credit card. You pay to
scooter things.
Yeah, you pay to ride a scooter. And so we rented those, and we were going to go to this not magazine store, a record store and video game store on like the opposite end of town.
Yeah.
And we get there, our scooters die. The store is closed. It closed like an hour and a half before what the internet said. So we missed it. But next door, there was a tattoo parlor. And I was like, well, we can't drive these darn scooters this whole way for nothing. Yeah. I need to go get a tattoo. And it was Valentine's Day, so I was like alone in a mood, So I was like, I don't know what to get on Valentine's Day.
So you got yourself the best gift anyone could ever get themselves on Valentine's Day.
Yeah. I kept like second guessing it. Like, I would go up to the door and like put my hand on the door and just be like, no, let's go. Like, I would let go. Like, we're going to go back. Let's just walk back to work. We're good. But then I would walk across the street and then be like, no, you know what? I need to go back and get a tattoo. That's what I'm here for right now. And so I did go, and I was trying to think of what I like. It's like, well, what the heck do I like? What do I get? I don't like anything.
Yeah.
And so then I walked in and I said, I don't like anything on my arm. Happy Valentine's Day.
That's insanity.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another one where like my brain would go to, like, if I'm sad on Valentine's Day and I've recounted to the fact that I'm going to get a tattoo, it's going to be like a broken heart or like some crying face.
Yeah, but that's ugly.
I'm so sad. Look at me. And yours is pretty much just like FTW.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's classic. I wish I had your ability to just be like, I don't know if it's whimsical is the correct answer, but just kind of like
it's whimsy.
Yeah, just free spirited kind of a person, and that's one of the things I like the most about your pod. Coming back to me liking your podcast, but that's one of the things I like the most about it is just the fact that you know that you're genuine in what you're saying and thinking and feeling, and that's one of the reasons that if you by chance might be slightly offending to somebody, it's still just a joke, and it's a joke because it's you. So.
Yeah.
You've done a very good job of having your personality translate into an online form in a radio show. Once a week, every Tuesday, usually is when your podcasts come out. Where's it available for everybody if they want to listen?
Literally everywhere.
Yes.
So like if you're listening to this show right now,
yes,
then my show is on the same platform.
I guarantee that. You might even be on more platforms than me because I ended up going to like the top 5 to 10 and getting them on there, and I was just like, good enough.
Yeah.
Because most of the other ones will pick it up from there.
Exactly.
But,
I found that a lot of them just kind of get it somehow.
Yeah.
There's some that I've never submitted it to and I'm on. So like TuneIn, I think, is one that I never submitted to, but I'm on it.
TuneIn will pick it up if you are a regular on Apple Podcast, as far as I know.
Oh, okay.
But TuneIn,
that must be why.
TuneIn's also had some issues where they went like 10 weeks without uploading anything from mine because they had a SoundCloud issue.
Oh, weird. And my host is SoundCloud. I wonder if they missed like 10 weeks of mine.
What? You're going to get a new follower today on SoundCloud, and it's going to be me. So,
oh, you're on SoundCloud?
I am on SoundCloud.
I mean, I know you're on SoundCloud. I set up your website.
Yes, you did. Yep. So, and that's actually really cool too. Like if you go to iowapodcastnetwork.com and you click on the shows link in the top left menu bar, and my show's on there. If you click on Audible Farm, or you can click on Welcome to My Show, which is Michelle's show, or Impedecast, because that's on there as well. But if you click on any of them, it has a brief description of what we do on the podcast, maybe a little link to have audio play within there. There's also a nice little scrolling bar that shows all of the positive and or negative reviews.
I would never put negative reviews on it.
Slam them in there. I don't know if anybody's got one yet. Most of mine have just been occasional retractors in the comments sections on YouTube for the most part.
Gosh.
But then there's also...
Yeah, I have not put YouTube comments on the site yet. Unless there's some really good ones.
Mine actually
really positive ones.
Mine has some pretty good interaction. For example, I did a podcast with Emery Brown recently. He's the guitarist for the Sleepover. He played in Dresden Style and a couple other bands, but he's really good at interacting with me on YouTube, whether it be conversationally, where he'll tag the time when he is listening to something and be like one of the things I suggested was leaving your guitar next to your TV. So if you're watching TV and a commercial comes on, you just pick your guitar up and start playing.
Yeah.
And so it's like right in front of you anyways. And he said that his music teacher he had growing up did that, and he could play like any TV theme song now.
That's awesome.
Like literally any of them. So,
Whoa.
So that was something I was like, well, that's pretty mind-blowing. Like I wanted to find a way to get that back out onto the podcast.
That's really cool.
And so, yeah, if you want to leave comments on anything, we actually really appreciate that, because whether or not you want to believe it, we interact with a lot of people, but we really don't interact with a lot of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My podcast does get interactions from, I would say, a handful of people every week, whether it be comments, people emailing me or stuff like that. How much interaction do you get? I feel like you might get a little bit more than me.
Probably not.
But
I mean, people will email me weird stories or just something that they think I should talk about, or someone sent me a news story one time that they thought I would like, which I did read on my show. But a lot of it is just like comments. Like I'll post my link to the show or whatever, and people will kind of interact with that on social media.
Yeah.
So
that's probably one of the things that warms my heart the most is when somebody that wasn't on your podcast or doesn't have any desire to be on your podcast shares your podcast. It makes me feel so good, like in the moment, because it's like one person that I randomly met at a metal show liked the fact that I interviewed somebody else that they knew, and they just shared it. And that stuff it's big. It helps out so much.
Yeah, it's crazy awesome that people are just out there listening to something, and if they like it, they will do something about it and share it, or even like leave a review. I've gotten some reviews from people that I've never spoken to, never met, have no idea who they are. Yeah, it's awesome.
It feels really good, especially when it's somebody that you have absolutely no clue who they are. Because I mean, believe it or not, a lot of people have reached out to me to do a podcast, but like, I do a podcast mostly with musicians from across the state, and some of them are from, Quad Cities area, some of them are from southern Iowa, some of them are from near Omaha, and it's tough to meet up with them, especially if we don't do gigs in the same area for the most part. So some of it is we try to like book our bands near one another so we can at least have an excuse to sit down. But some people I have actually like driven to meet just to meet up with them. But a lot of them are people I've never heard of, and that's one of the things I wanted to do is like help shed light on these other people, especially if there are other musicians that are interacting with me.
That's really good.
So I really appreciate everybody that has emailed me or messaged me or inquired about being on the podcast. I have heard all of them, and I can't wait to do podcasts with all of you. But at the same time, they come in everywhere. Like I get Facebook messages. I get them in the comments sections of things.
Wow,
I get emails. I've gotten text messages from numbers I don't know. I mean, it's nonstop.
That's awesome.
But if I've agreed to do a podcast with you and one of us or both of us has gotten busy, hit me back up again, because I'd love to do one. We're getting pretty close to doing an hour here already, which is pretty wild because it doesn't feel like an hour is going by.
No, it doesn't.
Do you want to plug all of your social media and stuff?
Sure. I mean, if you want me to.
Let's do it.
Okay, don't go to any of these things that I'm about to say, but if you want to find me on Facebook, it is facebook.com/welcome to my show podcast. And my Instagram is a highlight of my garbage kitchen. It is just Instagram at, how do you say Instagram?
I think it's an at.
It's at Garbage Kitchen.
Yes.
And Twitter is just my name, Michele K. Guild. As we discussed, Michelle with one L, because it's actually Michael.
Yes.
In Italian.
Yes.
I'm very Italian, if you couldn't tell.
Which one of these do you think you're most active on?
Probably Twitter, maybe Facebook.
Yes. I mean,
sometimes Garbage Kitchen.
Your Instagram actually has quite a few followers, if I'm not mistaken, does it not?
I don't know.
Let's see. I pulled it up right now. You've got over 500 followers. So I recently started following you today.
Oh, you weren't following me before?
I was
what a jerk.
not on Instagram, but I had you everywhere else. I recently subscribed to your YouTube channel, which you do have that.
Oh, yeah. I don't upload the shows to YouTube yet, but I put my dumb commercials that I make on YouTube. Yes. So some of those are up there.
Well, that was actually how this podcast all started out, was just a YouTube channel. I'd record bands playing live and just throw them on there with their permission, of course.
Yeah.
And, some bands said no because whatever, and poor audio quality, poor video quality, whatever it happens to be. But for the most part, I just wanted to have some place to put bands online, and then I started doing a podcast with it. And now I'm kind of just debating what I want to do with the YouTube channel, whether it to be... because it does host my podcast as well for a lot of people that don't know how to use apps or like listen at work or whatever, because they listen on SoundCloud, but it's blocked because whatever. So like most places won't block YouTube because it can be a learning tool for whatever you're doing.
And what I learned from Michael Libby is that a lot of people don't want to go to a thing that you have to actually sign up and make an account for.
Yes.
So YouTube, you don't have to do that. You can just...
click it and go.
Click it. Yep.
Yeah. So one of the things I did that I saw you doing was use Bitly to see what people would click on, and that was one of the first things I learned, was that a lot of people go to YouTube just based on the fact that it's like click and go and it starts playing and you don't have to worry about anything. Like SoundCloud, you don't have to get a username and stuff, but it kind of tries to make you when you want to listen to it on there. So. And I mean, like, not everyone has an iPhone, so you can't always listen on, the Apple Podcast app or in iTunes, because, but we are, our podcasts are available pretty much everywhere. And I'm just so happy that, like, it's so weird to say this. When I first started this, I went in pretty much blind. I didn't know anybody else other than a very select couple of people that had podcasts or anything even resembling them. And then I went to the meetup on a whim. I showed up fashionably late because I didn't know who all would be there or how they would receive everyone.
I didn't even know you showed up. Yeah. I was like shaking and nervous because I was about to do a stupid speech.
Yep. I actually walked in right when you started the speech. I sat in the back, and Ben and Andy from Welcome to My Show came over.
I'm from Welcome to My Show.
Oh, sorry. From Hey Buddy Podcast. They came over and started talking to me. But those two guys... I literally laughed so hard sitting and talking to those two guys.
They're great.
I don't know how somebody gets to be that entertaining, but shout out to those two.
They're very good. They're very good people. They're very entertaining people.
Yes.
I was so glad they showed up because they like brought people together and got people on their show and interacting, and people who don't have comedy shows.
Exactly.
Like Roadworthy Drive. They talk about cars and all the mechanics behind new vehicles and stuff, but they were letting loose on Hey Buddy. It was amazing.
Yeah, I don't care if that audio never comes out, but that podcast, literally exactly like you said, helped all of us open up and actually interact with one another.
Yeah.
And kudos to those two for kind of spearheading it and being the climate control around us, because they would, if everything would get too far out of hand every now and then, they'd just be like, hold on a second, and then they'd just ask someone a question and start a new topic.
They were so good. Yeah.
So I don't know. That's just such a dark horse thing. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with this or how I was going to go about doing this. And now I feel like there's a bigger sense of purpose. And I now have some peers in the game. Whether or not we all have the same kind of podcast, we at least can support one another with likes and shares and comments and things like that. So that's something I've been super thankful to have, at least have somebody to interact with instead of just trying to figure it all out on my own.
Right.
And so I'm really thankful for everything you've done. Check out the Iowa Podcast Network to see all of her great work, because I really appreciate it. And I know everyone else will too. Is there any other last remarks you want to leave before we go snag some brunch?
No.
All right. All right. It's brunch time, everybody.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to do this. I was looking forward to it all week.
This is did you know you're the first? I'm sure you do. You're the first female that's going to be on my podcast.
I'm honored.
So the door is now open to any females that want to be on the podcast. The bar has been set pretty high, I think.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
Thanks.
So appreciate you coming on, and thanks a lot.
You.
Man, aren't you glad I let her describe the podcast and not me? Because she's got quite the personality on her. I mean, when it comes from Garbage Kitchen to phone calling with her mom to We didn't even talk too much about reading the missed connections on Craigslist. That's hilarious too. I don't know where she comes up with these ideas, but it doesn't seem like she has very many bad ones, if any at all. I'm so happy that I went to the meetup that she did. She had set up. It was in Des Moines. I met a bunch of really cool people that all have their own podcasts, and everybody's podcast is different from everybody else's. And that's just one of the things I love about podcasting, aside from meeting all these really nice and neat people, whether it be from the people I'm interviewing or the other people that podcast, or going online and bouncing ideas off of people. I just love it. I get the opportunity to talk to so many different people, to just interact with a community of people that I can now call my peers, and I'm very thankful for it. So thank you very much, Michele, for giving my voice a nice place to reside on the Iowa Podcasts Network. So make sure you check her out online. She's got her own podcast as well. She's actually got 2 podcasts. Check out Welcome to My Show. It's available pretty much anywhere you're listening to this. And same with Impedecast. It's available pretty much everywhere you're listening to this. So check those out. She is on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, as well as accounts for all of her shows. And she's got YouTube. I mean, pretty much anywhere you can find us, you can find her. And that's kind of where I took some of my model from, was to try to do my best to find the people that I thought were doing it right and copy them, I guess. You know, copying somebody is the most sincere form of flattery. So thank you, Michele, for giving me a good business model to work off of. And thanks for coming on the show. I'm really glad you got to make some time to sit down with me. So I really appreciate it. I'm sure everybody else is just as thankful as I am. Go check out her shows online. Thank you for listening to the Audible Farm podcast. Interact with us online. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We are on YouTube. You can find the podcast pretty much anywhere. At Audible Farm is what our name is on almost every single thing you can find us at. Simple Google search will find us as well. Make sure you check out all the older episodes. Send us an email, audiblefarm@gmail.com. And if you like what we're doing, just let us know. If you have some suggestions, drop them in the email or send me a message personally. It's a lot easier if you go through the email account. That way I can separate everything from my personal life and what I have going on in the podcast, because I'm starting to lose track of a few people I had gotten a hold of a few months ago. So that's another one. If I got a hold of you to do a podcast and you're listening right now and you think I forgot about you, get a hold of me again, please. I really do want to do a podcast with you. I'm just busy, and I've been all over the state, and I'm sure everybody else is just as busy as I am, because that's just life. So as life goes the way that it goes, thank you guys for tuning into my podcast. Thank you very much for listening. I'll catch you guys all next week. Peace.